Welcome to the Inspiring Marriages Podcast. We are Jeff and Teresa Fields, and we are thrilled to have you with us today. The incredible music that you heard in our intro was the incredible work of our very own son, Joseph Taylor Fields.
We've been happily married for 32 amazing years. Along the way, we've been blessed by 3 incredible children. And we have a fantastic son-in-law and the most precious grandbaby you could imagine.
Get ready to be inspired. As we open up about our journey, our mission is to ignite a spark in couples everywhere. We're all about nurturing deep friendship and cultivating marriages that thrive in every way. Spiritually, emotionally, romantically, and physically. Join us on this incredible adventure.
Be sure to check out our website at inspiringmarriages.net. Dive into all our previous episodes with detailed show notes that will enrich your listening experience. Plus, scroll down to find our Keep in Touch section where you can sign up and receive our latest offerings absolutely free. That's right. And don't miss out on the inspiration. Visit us today.
Today we're going to talk about standing tall against societal pressures that come against a marriage. So we're working on a definition of marriage. Marriage is a man and a woman, physically and emotionally intimate, working together in a shared life to help each other realize their visions and dreams and walking with God to fulfill their callings and goals.
That's right. And our first scripture is Matthew 19:4 from the Passion Translation. Haven't you read the scriptures about creation? Jesus replied, the Creator made us male and female from the very beginning.
And the Worldwide English Version, the very same verse, Jesus answered, have you not read this? From the time God first made people, he made them a man and a woman. So we're working on the definition of a marriage, a man and a woman. And we talked about how a marriage is exclusive to one man and one woman. Mm-hmm. And then we talked about how important it is for marriage to be free from outside influences.
That's right.
The idea of a marriage being free from outside influences suggests creating a strong, resilient bond between spouses that isn't swayed by external pressures or opinions. And we talked about healthy boundaries, open, honest communication, developing mutual respect. And today, we're going to talk about how it is to focus on your shared values. Because when you focus on your shared values and goals within the marriage, you are able to withstand these societal expectations, external judgments that come against your marriage. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when you stand up and you say something against what society says is the norm, that takes courage. And Nassim Taleb said, courage is the only virtue you can't fake. You can fake other virtues, but you can't fake courage.
That's right.
And it's really important to understand your values as a family, as a husband and wife. Mm-hmm. What are your values? What do you stand up for? Where is the line that you draw? Now, some things are as not important to some people as others, but some things are really important. What is important to your marriage? And where is the line that you will stand? You will not cross this line.
Right.
So you have to sometimes draw a line in the sand, and you get that phrase from 2 different places. The Alamo, where Colonel Travis drew a line and said whoever's going to stand and fight would come across on this side. And also, I guess it comes from Moses.
Right. Who's on the
Lord's side? But it's really important.
Yes.
And we see this over time in scriptures where the men and women of God had to make a stand.
Yes,
and
they did.
And it took courage.
A lot of courage.
One of the ones was in Acts chapter 5, where the apostles were beaten, and they were commanded by religious leaders not to preach any more in the name of Jesus. But in Acts 5:29, in the New Living Translation, Peter and the apostles replied, "We must obey God rather than any human authority."
That's right.
And we're not anarchists. We believe in our government. We believe in paying our taxes and obeying laws of the land. But if those laws come in contrary to what is good and what is right, then we have to make a stand.
Yes, we have to make a stand. Exactly. That is so true.
And one of the values that your spouse have to agree on is, what are your views on marriage? Is being faithful important? What is marriage to you? Is it holy matrimony between a man and a woman? What's between? We believe that when a man and a woman are united in holy matrimony, you are become one flesh, and God is the center of your marriage.
Right.
And
that's
your
right.
marriage should reflect the relationship of Christ and the church.
Exactly.
So-
Exactly. Yes, so we don't view it as something to take lightly, and that God is in the midst of our marriage, and it is a covenant that we made together, but we made it in the eyes of God. So it is so important that we know we're accountable to
Right.
God
Right.
for how we live out this marriage, this union together. And not everybody views it that way, but you need to be in agreement about your views on your marriage and what that means to you.
Right. So there is in society, you can see it. They don't hold marriage, the sanctity. They don't believe in the sanctity of marriage. They don't believe in faithfulness and
Right.
being faithful to each other. There's adultery that's performed every day or committed every day. And so there's things that places we can't go to. There's movies we can't watch.
Right.
So there's
Right.
just different things that would violate our values that we choose
That's good.
not
yeah.
to participate in.
Exactly.
Another value is, how important is worshiping as a family to you? Is it important?
That's right. Yes, and it needs to be agreed upon, because we've talked about this before. Sometimes his church background could be different than mine, how we were raised, and we need to get in agreement on, of course, what church to attend, and for church to be a family observance. We all observe the Lord's Day together, and we raised our kids that way, to attend church and find a place to serve in the church as they got older as well.
And then that includes, how much you're going to give, how much you're going
It certainly does.
to tithe, how much you're going to give on top of the tithes. You need to come together and be in agreement to that. And so that means sometimes your kids can't do everything they want to do. If something they do violates, takes them away from church. I mean, a lot of places, they have soccer games all day Sunday.
Yes.
They have baseball games all day Sunday. Wednesday
Right.
night they have things going on. So there's
Practices or
practices.
games.
So
yeah.
sometimes you have to make a choice. Now, that doesn't mean you can never miss. And don't want to make it also a religious obligation, a religious rule, because then you need to understand why it's important. So you don't want to become a religious rule.
That's right.
We had friends, pastors from Nigeria. They thought when they first came to America that since America was a Christian country, that on Sunday everybody be going to church and
Right.
everything would be closed down. And they got
Right.
here and they saw a lot of places Sundays just like any other day.
Right. And that, they had good values, that was a great thing to expect. That would be a great way to live. But, that's kind of up to each community and, state by state, if they're going to close things down. It used to be more like that when we were children.
Right.
It was,
and there's still some small places where there's a lot of, even in our city, there's restaurants that are not open on are not open on Sunday.
That's right.
So their workers can attend church and they can worship where they want to go. Also, in society, they tell you if someone wrongs you, you got to sue, you got to cancel them, you got to take it out on them. But God's viewpoint is forgiveness. So it's a direct contrast to what the world is saying you must do.
That's right. Right. So that's something you have to work out together in your marriage. How do we handle grievances or disagreements with other married couples or other families? Do we, of course, they're going to have their own values, so we can't try to make them think the way we think or believe like we believe, but, forgive them instead of just completely writing them off, is what we would prefer to do because of what we know from the scriptures. God tells us to forgive. And that doesn't mean just let people keep wronging you. You may have to change the way that relationship is, just like we've talked about.
Healthy boundaries.
Healthy boundaries, yes. Because, just letting someone abuse you is not healthy. But we forgive people, but you learn how much you can trust people to be in your close association of friends or close with your whole family or just more of an acquaintance and that kind of thing. So, having healthy boundaries. But, of course, forgive them. Don't hold grudges. I mean, if husband and wives get together and talk bad about somebody that they don't like or somebody that wronged them or, had a problem with at their job, the kids are watching that.
Right.
They're hearing that. And what are they going to learn from that? Well, okay, we gripe and complain and argue and stay mad at people when we don't like them or they don't like us. They're going to pick that up without you saying.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Be very careful, even how you and your spouse, when you're all alone, what you say about other couples or other people. Just be very careful and hold each other accountable. And
that's right.
That's part of being married. You have to help each other, right? So that honey, I think I might say something. I can't believe so and so did that. I can't stand that, and she may have to help me realize what I'm saying and help walk out the steps of forgiveness.
Right.
So society says, you're not going to be happy unless you have such and such a house and so many cars and your kids go to this school or that school or just the private school. You're not going to be happy. You got to have vacations to Hawaii or whatever. So you need to come. What is your attitude on material wealth? What is? I'm not going to work. I'm not going to sacrifice my family time by trying to make extra money on the weekends. Or now sometimes you may have to buckle down and work extra to overcome a difficulty, but just to be, I need more. And also we need to instill into our children the importance of giving. We are stewards of the money that comes into our hands. And all of that's not for us.
That's right.
A lot of it is for other people. Right. It's not for us to keep.
Help other people, yes. And of course, we learned from Dave Ramsey, teach your kids to save, too.
Of course, save.
You talk about what you're going to do as far as saving and how much you give. And, as a married couple, that's so important.
Yeah, so we've been blessed ever since, now this is us, we've been blessed ever since we married. Teresa did not have to work outside the home. She worked. She taught homeschool for 25 years, so she not going to say she didn't work. She didn't work outside the home. So that means we had to make sacrifices, and
Sometimes, but
do our own grass and clean our own house. And,
yeah, we always have what we needed, though.
Keep our car. We
Right.
kept
Keep
our
your
car.
for
We
as
kept
many
our
years
cars
as we
for
can.
the last one was 20 years, right? My Honda was,
Oh,
had
yes,
my Honda
your-
for
your
20
car.
years,
Kept it for 20
19,
years.
20 years,
Kept it running.
and our Suburban, I don't know, 13
Four-
years,
14 years, I think.
So
Kept that
we
one
wrote,
14
we
years.
ride them into the ground. So, but that's okay. So we are accumulating material wealth is not that important to us. It's more what we do with it that's important
right.
to us.
That's right.
So society is against that, and maybe you'll have some. And so we homeschooled. So not everybody in our family agreed that's a good idea. They thought the kids would be socially inept, or
Right.
but actually they
It's
weren't.
just a common
It was opposite,
misconception.
right? It was opposite.
Right, that they won't be properly socialized. But socialization, in its definition, is not with your peers. It is actually in the family unit or being able to move about in society with people of different ages and different cultures and different backgrounds. So that's true socialization instead of just being in a classroom with 30 people just like you or 30 kids your same age, and that's, it's been a misconcept. So I could understand that they didn't know. I mean,
Right.
homeschooling
And
was not well known at the time.
Not everybody
when
can
we
homeschool,
started.
and we understand that because it does cost the money for the material, and sometimes people are in this situation where they've chosen for both spouses to work, and so not demeaning that or putting that down or trying to put my opinion on that. For us, the
For
best
us.
thing is for Teresa to stay home and homeschool the children. That was best for us.
That was best for us.
Another thing is the stewardship of the earth. God created the earth, and He gave it to Adam and Eve to protect the earth, to cultivate it, to improve upon it, to watch
Right.
over it, to keep over it. Of course, Adam forfeited that, but
Right.
then when Jesus redeemed us, paid that terrible price that He paid, He told the apostles, all authority has been given to me in heaven and in earth. Here, I'm giving it back to you.
Right.
So we're
I'm giving it to
responsible
you.
for the earth. So we don't throw trash on the ground. We don't pour oil down a hole. We want
Don't
to
leave
take
our
care.
picnic all over a
We
park.
want to
area.
take care of the
you know.
earth, and we want to, we don't want to cut down all the trees.
Right,
And
right.
we want to take care of the earth. We want to be stewards of the earth, which really goes despite what they say, it really goes against what society really wants to do. They want to use it up, really.
That's right. The
And
next one is a really big one.
and
Really,
and it's really a
big
big one. Is the sanctity of life.
Mm-hmm.
How important is the sanctity of life to you? Sometimes you have to stand up and say something, and sometimes your values as a husband and wife, that you agree upon, that's going to sway your behavior. That's going to drive your behavior. Things that
Right.
you really believe, that's going to drive your behavior. It's going to drive the way you vote. Really.
It should.
So,
it should.
so sanctity,
Yes.
when does life begin? And sanctity of life, as talk about from the newborn or the unborn to the end of life.
Right, right. Because we've seen it on both ends of the spectrum where a lot of people have devalued human life before birth or even in infancy and at the end of life, just like people are expendable. And that
People
we
not
know
expendable.
is not true according to God's word and what God says. Every life is
Right.
very
There
precious
is
to Him.
even those who are elderly and maybe infirm. But they have value.
They have value. They do. They still have purpose.
They have purpose. Yeah. So we value both ends. So that's just going to drive you. And you'll be challenged in that. Along the way, you're going to be challenged. You're going to be challenged, and you're going to come across a situation where you're going to have to stand up for what you believe.
That's right. That's right.
Really. T.S. Eliot said, "Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen."
That is so good. He had a lot of wisdom himself, didn't he?
Yes.
That was good.
Daniel chapter 3, and if you haven't ever read this story, it's about an idol that was erected, a huge idol, and everyone was commanded at the sound of a trumpet or a blast or some kind of musical instrument. It was an idol of King Nebuchadnezzar. And it was King Nebuchadnezzar and so everyone had to bow down to this idol, and who would not bow down would be killed.
Right.
And so and there were 3 Hebrew men, or we call them Hebrew children for some reason.
I know, they were young men.
They were princes. So these were people. They were part of people that were captured by Babylon. So Babylon would capture people and then bring them back into their society and indoctrinate them into their society. It's kind of like the Borg. The Borg.
The Borg on Star Trek.
You will be assimilated. Resistance is futile. They even changed their names. These are Babylonian names. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They're all about the gods of Babylon. So they were, and you know the story. If you read Daniel chapter 3, we're not going to go into it today, where they were told and they didn't bow down. And so the king said, I will.
You went to the fiery furnace.
And they basically said, do what where you throw us or not, we're not going to bow down. So they got thrown in the fire, and they looked in the furnace and saw a 4th man walking around with them, and Nebuchadnezzar, this looks like the Son of God, and he called them out, and they weren't. Their clothes weren't burnt. Right. So sometimes you have to make a stand unharmed. And stand up when it's hard. And in this case, it didn't cost them their lives, but it could have.
Certainly.
And they wouldn't have been wrong if they died. They still wouldn't have been right. And look at all the apostles, the disciples of Jesus. All but one gave his life for the gospel. Right. John was the only one who lived to the elderly age and died of natural causes. Yeah. All the other ones were martyred for their faith. And it tells us, sawed in half, or crucified, or burned in oil, beheaded. So many of them were serious. When they had to take a stand. And it cost them their lives. It really did. And there's been so many martyrs over the years of men and women who have stood up and said, that's not right. And it's cost them. It might cost you a promotion. It might cost you relationships. It may cost you friendships. Right. It may cost you material things. But it's always important, Teresa, isn't it, to stand up for your values.
It really is, because as you said before, if we compromise these things, trying to keep peace with people, that's peace in quotation marks. That's not real peace. We're just trying to get along with everybody. Well, you're going to lose ground. You're going to lose your self-respect for one thing. But God expects us to be true to what we believe. He expects us to live by these things, not just say them like it's a nice thought or it's a great thing to believe, but we're supposed to be ordering our lives by our values. So that does mean sometimes, well, if my friends are always wanting to do these things that are against our values that we've agreed upon, they want our kids to do something with their kids that we don't agree is healthy or safe or, just is not according to our values, then
Right.
we have to say no. Or
Right.
even other adults, would want to do things, and we're like, we can't go along with that. You go do what you want to do, but we can't go along with that. You have to know what it is you agreed on, so you will be strong enough to say, we can't do that, or we can't be a part of that.
Right.
It's important, so important.
Rushworth M. Kidder said, "Sound values raises tough choices." Sometimes it's a tough choice to stand up for what you believe.
Mm-hmm.
And do you really believe this or not?
Right. It's always tempting to just take the easier route, go the way of least resistance, but that's not the Christian life. We are going upstream in a downstream world where everybody's just going with the flow, but we can't flow with a culture that's gone crazy and a culture that is just now blatantly against the things of God. We can't just sit idly by and say, okay, well, that's all right. We have to say, no, this is wrong, not just for us. It's wrong for humanity. It's
Right.
wrong in every way.
Right. So to stand up for your values, these are some things to avoid. Isolation. Don't be isolated as a family. Don't be isolated
That's good.
as from each as a couple. Don't be isolated from each other. Don't be isolated. And you see this a lot when sometimes students who have been raised up in church first time go to college and they get confused because they're isolated from the parents and are isolated from their friends.
Right. They don't
And
have that support
They
system.
don't have that support system. So that's why it's so important to come together as a family and worship together. Even talk about these things.
Talk about
as
these
a
things.
family.
Oh, yes.
And you will be faced with tough choices. But it's important not to be isolated. And the government school system does a great job at indoctrination.
Right.
These are the things that we believe, and you will conform. Indoctrination.
Right.
There's a simulation, and so simulation is like, how simulation is, where you just the Army does a great job of assimilation.
Oh, yes.
Where everyone gets the same haircut, everyone wears the same clothes, everyone marches in line. So
Yes,
it's very
all
assimilated. You are assimilated
alike.
into the Army.
Act alike.
When you're Army, that's very important. You want everyone working
Right.
together as one. But in society, not so much.
Right.
Especially when society is
Conformity
going
not.
against the Word of God and going against the love of God. We don't want to be assimilated just to get along.
Exactly. Yeah, just conforming to get along with people. You don't have to be like everybody else.
Right. So, like in simulation, back when Babylonian captured the princes of Israel, they gave them new names to assimilate them.
Right, because a name, especially for people of the Hebrew heritage, the Jewish faith, their name meant who they were. It had characteristics that name meant, and that was who you were. That's your identity. It's not just, I answer to that name. This is like, if this name means peace, if it means rest, if it means, many other good things, that's who I am.
Yeah, right,
It represents you as a person.
Right.
So they were trying to strip that away and say, now you are this. Now you are, someone who worships this God or that God, and, completely trying to redo their identity.
Right. So even a very recent example of this evil is when the Hebrews were rounded up by the Nazis. They were given tattooed numbers on their arms instead of names to try to assimilate them and to create confusion, really. To take away their identities,
Right, and of course, remove them from their families and their other relationships.
And everyone recognizes that is evil.
Right.
And
Dehumanizing anybody is evil.
And society seeks to confuse you. So we must avoid. We need to be very clear on what our values are, and what we stand for and why we stand for these values. And it's important to talk about that as a couple, and it's important to talk about that to your children. So one of the best ways to fight against external pressures, negative external influences, is to focus on your shared values.
Yes.
Exciting news. Catch our audio podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Podcasts. We would love to hear your thoughts, so please leave us a review. Do you prefer watching? Head on over to YouTube and search for the Inspiring Marriages channel to see us in action. And for the ultimate convenience, listen with your smart device. Just say, Siri, play the Inspiring Marriages podcast. Join us wherever and however you prefer to tune in. This week's Friendship Builder. So this week's Friendship Builder is take a visit to a zoo or an aquarium. So it's also just nice just to walk around and take your time and just go around and look at the different animals in the zoo, or look at the different species of fish or aquatic animals they have in an aquarium. I think our second date was to a zoo. We were really going to a Stephen Curtis Chapman concert, but we decided to go to a zoo beforehand. So we were driving from middle Georgia to Atlanta, hour and a half, 2 hours. And so the concert was that night, so we decided to stop by the zoo on the way to the concert.
It was a lot of fun. I think I got very entertained by an orangutan they had there. It was just really interesting to watch all the playful things that it would do. But, it's just like anything in life. You might see pictures of it or see it on TV. You've heard about it. But to go see something in person, even if it's just animals or sea life, it's very satisfying. It's very rewarding. And it, new things to talk about, because it was only our second date. It was really fun to have interesting things to talk about, new shared experience. That's always great.
Yeah, Teresa does not like the reptile house.
No, I don't care for reptiles. I can study them, but I don't want to be around them. I'm not going to pet a snake. No.
Yeah, you can just walk around. Let's look at the different animals and just watch them and just see how they move and just enjoy each other and just enjoy just spending time together. And
That's right.
So go visit a zoo or an aquarium.
Stay connected with us across all platforms. Join our vibrant community on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe for the latest updates and behind-the-scenes moments.
Got something on your mind? Shoot us an email at inspiringmarriages@att.net. We're all ears for your questions or suggestions on how to enhance our podcast. And if you have any ideas on topics you'd love us to dive into next, let's keep the conversation going. So until next time, remember, husband and wife are friends for life.